Before going to Terezin city, where the concentration camp was created for Jewish people, I was told that the city where we would go was one of the poorest parts of the Czech Republic, and I expected something bad. However, when we came to Terezin, the city looked good. There was no dirt, there were no homeless people, and there was no rubbish. It was just a normal city with beautiful buildings and sculptures and a really nice church, but the city had horrible history. When I looked at this church, I thought about Jewish people who lived in Terezin Hatta and saw this church which could remind them about their religion and synagogue, which they did not have in ghetto. The city looked really lonely. I could feel unhappy and sad atmosphere there. While reading Night and visiting Terezin, I was touched emotionally by the conflict of faith that many Jews faced during the Holocaust. I imagined how people still believed in their gods, going through challenges which they had in all concentration camps in the Eastern Europe during World War II. In the book Night by Elie Wiesel, the narrator talks frequently about religion and about the faith Father of the universe. He became so upset with his religion that at the end of the book, the main character nearly lost his faith in God. At Terezin, I also imagined how hard it would have been for the prisoners to keep believing in God. Even though Terezin was a model camp, which means that it was an example of a good camp, it still was a very bad, horrifying and challenging place to be. However, the extermination camps where Elia was sent to were even worse. Elia says in his book Night on page 7, the joy in his eyes was gone. He no longer sang, he no longer mentioned either God or Kabbalah. He spoke only of what he had seen. The quote describes how Moshe, a deeply religious man, no longer speaks of God or Kabbalah after he witnesses the massacre of Jews by the German Gestapo. This is only mentioned briefly, but are we to assume that, like Eliezer later, in the face of the horrors he sees, Moshe has lost his faith in God? Also, there is another quote where Akiba Drama says his opinion. God is testing us. He wants to see whether we are capable of overcoming our base instincts, of killing the Satan within ourselves. We have no right to despair, and if he punishes us mercilessly, it's a sign that he loves us that much more. The quote on the page 45. In this quote, a false hope was shown, with the hope that other Jews have in God. The religious hope is also false hope, used for comfort in the same way as Eliezer and his father look for comfort in the hope that their loved ones are alive. The last quote which I want to mention is on page 91. And in spite of myself, a prayer formed inside me, a prayer to this God in whom I no longer believed. O God, Master of the universe, give me the strength never to do what Rabbi Alu's son has done. Though Eliezer has lost his faith, he still prays for strength to keep himself from abandoning his father, the most important person in his life. He is asking for the strength to not lose his humanity, as it usually happened with prisoners in the concentration camps because of the bad conditions which they had. When we were walking along the city and around the concentration camp, I thought, what would I do if I was put in the concentration camp as Jewish people were? I'm not sure whether I believe in God or not, but would I lose my faith in God or conversely obtain the faith there? When we went through a small building and walked inside, we saw inscription in Hebrew and the Star of David everywhere on the ceiling and walls. I was amazed that people were risking to make their own worship, made it, and went there to pray and hope that their prayers would be heard and they would live as before. I don't know what I would do in this kind of situation, but I wish I had such strong faith and courage as people in the concentration camps had, such as Terezin.